Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is full of mysteries that have left a lot of fans puzzled. Some things only make sense after time and reflection, but even then, more than a few remain completely unresolved. These unanswered questions have sparked countless debates across YouTube, Reddit, Discord. Fans dissect every scene, pore over journals, and obsess over dialogue, trying to find hidden meaning. I've gathered these mysteries along with fan theories and organized them into an Iceberg tier list, from the lighthearted and fun to the I stayed up until 4 a.m. learning about an 18th century French writer. Verso's magic trick. One of the game's sillier moments has Monoco suggesting Verso lighten the mood with his magic trick. Being immortal, he splits in half and sneaks up on the others, thoroughly freaking them out. Questions then naturally arise. How can his legs talk? Does he heal from the top or the bottom? Can he be in two different places at once? Verso claims he can go fight Nevrons with his top half while his legs stay at camp and cook up some meals. The scene serves as comic relief in an otherwise immensely bleak game, and that's why it's in tier 1. Yeah, we don't really get answers, but who cares, it's just fun. Next we talk about Monoco and his love of feet. After meeting Monoco, the party takes down a Stalact, a large ice and fire Nevron. Monoco casually walks over, rips off its foot, and transforms into it, showing us one of the weirder mechanics in the game. Collecting Nevron feet lets Monoco turn into Nevrons and use their abilities. This is a nod to the classic RPG Blue Mage mechanic, a class that can use enemies' abilities, popularized by the Final Fantasy series. Even Verso, who's been around 100 plus years and is Monoco's best friend, has no idea how this works. The topic is pretty much dropped after this scene, and we never really get any in-game explanation. But in an interview, Sandfall said that Monoco the dog, Sandfall's happiness manager, likes to attack feet, so we at least had that bit of closure. Next, let's talk about the books found throughout the game. Interactable stacks of books appear in the manor, falling over when you knock into them. The books themselves are reused in other areas of the game, and taking a closer look, we can actually make out the titles. The Illustrated Family Gymnasium, Ruined Abbeys and Castles of Great Britain and Ireland, The Poetical Works and Remains of Henry Kirke White, and Shooting, Boating, and Fishing for Young Sportsmen. A quick Google shows they're all real and from the 19th century, and pretty damn boring. No one seems to have really mined these pages for hidden meaning. Maybe one day someone will take a hit for the team and go through them, but it's not going to be me. The ticking clock. Here's a look at the clock found in the upside-down house in Spring Meadows. When walking up to it, the music fades out and all that's left is the irregularly timed ticking of the clock, and some occasional chiming. Fans have speculated on its significance, but I haven't seen any solid theories around it. My take is that it's meant to complement the song that plays when you advance into the next part of the zone. The track's called Linen and Cotton and seemingly comments on the time dilation between the canvas and the real world. Deep within the game's files, fans have found hints of a larger role for Holler, the already dead Axon with the city on its back, specifically a combat arena and some attacks. Other fans have pointed out the way that its arm extends and seems to almost give you a ramp to the city on its back. The writer of Expedition 50H Journal mentions wanting to explore that city, so you have to wonder if we were intended to do just that, but it just never came to fruition. Speaking of journals, let's talk about the one left behind by Expedition 36. The White Tree Poem. In the small White Tree area, we find all that remains of Expedition 36, one expeditioner's cryptic poem. Speculation says that its stanzas may hint at specific locations, and some fans even connect it to White Sands due to similar cryptic poetry.
Winter souls drift through the night and land soft upon the moonlit vale, whose snowy shrouds hold tight the hope I'd whispered once, long ago.
Looking at each stanza, we can make some guesses about what it might be referring to. This first part mentions winter and snow, so it could be frozen hearts. The next mentions golden folds adorning stems, which could make it yellow harvest, or white tree itself. This one literally mentions darkened shores, so it could be dark shores, or perhaps stone wave cliffs. And the last one mentions fragrant stalks of feathergrass, which could make it spring meadows, or again, yellow harvest. Unfortunately, that's where the speculation ends, as no one's found anything else related to this poem.
The world is full of wonders. Yet everywhere we go, we walk with death.
The Sinister Cave. The Sinister Cave is a pretty odd area. It's dark, claustrophobic, and just all around eerie. It feels like there should be more here besides a chromatic ruler and a dead gestural merchant, and there kind of is. In my video about off-camera secrets, I showed how there's another inaccessible area that's kind of just a maze of dead ends in the dark. But even more peculiar is cut dialogues where the Gestural Merchant is still alive. He basically tells you to just leave him alone until you remind him he's a merchant. Kinda sad, I really would've liked to meet this guy even if he didn't want to meet me. Gustave waking in Spring Meadows. Most of Expedition 33 is brutally wiped out just after landing on the continent. It's a horrifying scene and also a pretty well obscured one. Before everything cuts to black, we see Gustave take a huge hit from a Nevron. When fading back in, we see Gustave wake up in Spring Meadows nearly dead, and how he ended up here is unclear. Did he somehow fall in a river and was carried here over the waterfall he wakes up next to? Did Verso save him? Unlikely, since he later admits letting Gustave die at the end of Act 1. Or was he originally supposed to have traveled here via Dark Shores, but something changed? This brings us into Tier 3. It's widely assumed that Expedition 33 landed at Dark Shores. It's the only location that really fits the scene we looked at earlier. But as I showed in that video I had mentioned, Dark Shores is far larger than it first appears. This boat here cuts off access to another half of the zone, which looks like it was scrapped mid-development. Scattered around are buildings, a dead Nevron, climbing handholds, generic paintings, and even the yellowish goop we see in Old Lumiere, suggesting that Simon was here. By the way, Simon factors into the White Sands discussion we'll get to later, and I haven't really seen anyone talk about it, so stay tuned for that. The most interesting piece here, though, is the zone-out portal in the back. Considering Dark Shore's position relative to Spring Meadows, it's reasonable to think that maybe Gustave was originally intended to make his way to Spring Meadows via this portal in the back of Dark Shores. But why that might have been cut from the game, we can only speculate. After the party reunites with Sciel at the Gestural Arena, she mentions ending up in a strange yellow forest before she was guided here by a Gestural. This is almost certainly Yellow Harvest, and it's a solid distance away from Dark Shores. So how did she get there and why? Well, unlike the other characters, Sciel doesn't get her own side quest. Luna gets closure at Syringe Dress, Maelle has the Reacher and Painted Alicia, Monoco revives Noko at the Sacred River, but Sciel? Well, there's evidence something was planned for her, but just never made it into the final cut. Now, bear with me, here are a few key points to keep in mind. Sciel is a farmer. This comes up in conversation with Gustave about an aqua farm, and later again with Verso. She had a husband named Pierre who died in an accident on an island off the coast of Lumiere, and his body washed away. She said they were supposed to have 5 more years together, placing Pierre's death around the time of Expedition 38. Still with me? In Yellow Harvest, the writer of the Expedition 38 journal mentions having Clair Obscur by her side. She also mentions another character they buried who would have missed the aqua farms. Now, I know what you're thinking. Just because 2 characters have a similar name doesn't mean they're the same person. And yeah, I totally agree. What's found in the game files are alternate versions of Expedition 38's journal. These are minor variations of the one we get in-game, but a notable difference is that they replace Clair Obscur with Jacob, which seems odd, doesn't it? Why go through the trouble of re-recording this journal and changing the name if there wasn't a connection they were looking to build? The real kicker, though, is that these files have Sciel in the file name. Given all these details, I think this is Sciel's missing side quest, or at least part of it. Maybe Pierre was supposed to have survived his accident and ended up on the continent with Expedition 38, only for Sciel to find his trail 5 years later. There's also a link to Falling Leaves. There's a cave in Yellow Harvest that contains expeditioners encased in a column of sap. It's assumed the source is the Lady of Sap in Falling Leaves. We move on to the final boss of the area, the Scavenger, and the only party member with Verso in that cutscene is Sciel. Kinda weird, huh? The Boy and Maelle's ending. This kid remains a hotly debated mystery, with a lot of people having strong opinions one way or the other. Here are the main theories, starting with the faceless boy made whole. This one makes some sense continuity-wise. We have the faceless boy in this scene. During the cut to black, Maelle says, "If you could grow old, would you find a reason to smile?" And the next scene has Maelle walking in holding a kid's hand. Also, Maelle's love for her brother would make it strange for her to just leave the boy as a faceless horror show. Some points against it, though, are that Verso's eyes are blue and this boy's eyes are brown. Some suggest Maelle took ownership of the painting, so Verso doesn't need to paint anymore, but it's a bit unclear how that would work. Another theory is that it's one of Gustave's apprentices, Guillaume. Points for it are that the hairstyle is the same, and he's the kid we're most familiar with besides little Verso or the faceless boy. Points against it are that his facial features and eye color seem to be different, though some chalk this up to an accidental inconsistency. Then there's Luna's apprentice. Points for it, we don't get a great look at this kid, but at a glance he does look similar. And he seems most friendly with Luna out of the group. The only point I really have against this is that it just seems like an odd choice to have a kid that only gets a couple of seconds of screen time in the ending. And then there's Sophie and Gustave's child. Gustave and Sophie originally split because of the disagreement about raising children in a world threatened by the Gomat. With that threat gone, it makes sense that they might finally choose to have a child. The only oddity is that Maelle is the one who walks in with the kid rather than the parents themselves, but she would technically be the kid's aunt in this case. The Endless Tower. A lot of players were disappointed by the Endless Tower. On the world map, it looks like this epic place to climb, but it turns out it's just a menu of combat trials. And what's up with these strange red canvases that you just can't interact with? Well, I have a theory. If you look up, you'll see that there's something up there. And that's because all the combat arenas from the trials are actually stacked on top of one another, forming the actual tower. So technically, we really did climb the Endless Tower, we just may not have noticed. Now, if you count the blank canvases here, there are 11, same as the number of stages in the tower. So it's likely each canvas here represents one trial, with the other two represented by the other red canvases. Maybe the blank canvases were meant to be painted with something once you completed a stage, but if so, that feature was just never finished, and we may never know. Perhaps the biggest mystery in this game is the writers. We learn almost nothing about this group, yet they play a pivotal role in the Desandre family's story. Who are they exactly? What are their powers? Can they create whole worlds like the painters? Why did they attack this family? Here's what we do know. The writers and the painters are at war, with Clea, Alicia's sister, doing most of the fighting. The writers manipulated Alicia and played a major role in the mansion fire and Verso's death. Verso traded his life for Alicia's, as Clea puts it. Alicia carries the weight of this guilt, both physically and emotionally. Aline, her mother, blames Alicia for these events, painting a copy of her into the canvas with her injuries. We also see Alicia's love of writing manifest in many ways. There are multiple typewriters and stacks of books in her room. Dialogue notes that she spends her time reading while Verso and Clea played in the canvas. She took over the writing in Gustave's journal, her poetry discussion with Verso, and her often poetical dialogue. Painted Alicia even has one of the most poetic moments in the game.
I envy them. Those who can't see. Those who know not that they are not. And those who live, blithe and free, sins forgotten, and thus absolved. A fresh dawn in their playground, while we live in shadows, swimming in ink.
All these hints suggest the writer's influence is deeply intertwined with the narrative, yet frustratingly opaque. There's one more clue to Alicia's writer nature, though, and that's one of her attacks, Stendhal. Marie Henry Bale, known by his pen name Stendhal, was an 18th century French writer. His only published work under his real name was The History of Painting. His autobiographical writings include many comments on masks and the thrill of feeling alive in many versions, eerily similar to the themes in Expedition 33, with Visage and the rhetoric around masks, and the painters creating avatars of themselves in the canvas worlds. According to the literary theorist Cornelia Kavas, in his novel The Red and the Black, Stendhal refers to a novel as a mirror. A mirror doesn't reflect reality in its entirety, nor is the artist's aim to document it fully. More eerie parallels to Expedition 33, like this passage from Painted Alicia's letter to Maelle.
My family, a facsimile of yours, and this world, a mirror, painted by your mother, the paintress, to stave off her grief.
Or this line from the Mask Keeper in Visage.
Great art is both window and mirror, whether it's your mask or theirs.
Even more intriguing, and named after the writer, is Stendhal's syndrome, a psychological, intense, emotional and physical reaction to art or beauty. Infamous horror filmmaker Dario Argento made a movie titled Stendhal Syndrome. In it, the main character enters a fugue state when staring at paintings and actually falls into the world of one of them, a concept that feels right at home in Expedition 33. Time dilation. Time in the canvas moves far faster than in the real world. Alicia and Clea's conversation in the real world happens 16 canvas years before we see them again in Verso's ending, yet they show no signs of aging. Developers have said there's a specific canvas to real-world time ratio, but it's vague enough that fans can only speculate. Most fan math relies on some details such as the period between the manor fire and Alicia's wounds having healed, the timeline of Aline's ejection and re-entry into the canvas, how long painters' bodies can survive in the real world while in the canvas, and whether they enter some form of stasis, and so on and so on. Some say it's a 1 day to 100 day ratio, others say 1 to 33, there's no shortage of theories out there. One fan on Reddit went so far as to create a spreadsheet as a time dilation calculator for people to play around with theories, which is some serious dedication. Personally, all that math gives me a headache. I'm sure there's people smarter than me watching this, so if you've got a theory, let me know. White Sands is one of the game's most confounding and talked about areas. Accessible only in Act 3 after flying with Esquier, it's an island with no beach access. Up on a cliff, we see what looks like the manor from Old Lumiere. Luna and Sciel comment on this, and Maelle says, no, something's different. Then the dialogue just ends and is replaced by French slam poetry from Laurien Testard, the composer. Originally meant for the gommage, though I'm unclear which one, it's a stark contrast to the rest of the game's soundtrack and can be pretty jarring. Fans have since translated the poem into English, and in my opinion, it's a beautiful piece. Some fans speculate that there's a hidden Easter egg in this poem, but it likely just stayed in the game because of its unsettling mood. So what else is in White Sands? Not a whole lot. You pick up the Aline music record here, there's a rowboat, and that's kind of it. But something I haven't seen talked about much is some hidden dialogue that was found in the game's files. The dialogue that occurs here is also found in the dialogue file for the Monolith, indicating that this scene was supposed to take place over there at some point. Then there's what appears to be cut dialogue from Simon. Something happened at the White Sands. Now, this almost feels like the devs are just messing with us because it's such a weird, out-of-place statement for that character. The cut dialogue continues, though, with gaze into the chroma, who will fight, a family life, a lonely life, and then a series of 5 numbered paintings. It appears that a family life, a lonely life, and the numbered painting options would be dialogue for the player to choose between. This part seems very similar to The Chosen Path, where you choose one of your characters to fight in each of the paintings. This suggests scrapped content, and we can only speculate as to what the original intention was. Crate numbers. In some areas of the game, like Lumiere and Monoco Station, you may have noticed numbers written on the crates or on fencing. 25, 74, 62, then 55, then 10/1930. Some believe these are just reused Unreal Marketplace assets, others suspect that they're clues to an Easter egg. So far, no theory has fully explained them. December 33rd and the real world. Alright, time to put the tinfoil hat back on. Some fans speculate that the world outside the canvas isn't actually real in the game's context, but one more artificial layer, perhaps created by the writers. Supporters of this theory cite the non-existent December 33rd date, Renoir's lying Axon as a mirror of the real-life Verso, and several inconsistencies within the real-life manor. If you believe the meta that the writers refer to the creators of the game, then this theory does kinda check out, though it still leaves the question about how Clea is fighting a war against them. Sandfall, y'all okay over there? Anyway, let me know in the comments if you have any theories on any of these mysteries or if there are any good ones that I missed. And if you want to check out the off-camera secrets video I mentioned, you can check it out here. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.